There comes a night when silence feels louder than the noise of the whole world. A night when you realize that no one is coming to save you. No hand will reach down to pull you up. No voice will whisper hope into your ears. And in that moment you finally see it. You've hit rock bottom. Rock bottom is not a place you walk into willingly. It's the place life throws you when it has broken every bone of your confidence, stripped away every illusion you had, and burned every bridge you once walked on. It's the place where your phone stops ringing, where your so-called friends disappear, where your dreams feel like ashes scattered in the wind. You don't plan to end up there. Nobody does. But suddenly you wake up one day and everything you thought was permanent is gone. Maybe it was a betrayal. Maybe it was failure. Maybe it was losing someone you thought you couldn't live without. But however it happened, you find yourself there, in the pit, at the bottom, staring at the ceiling of your own despair. And here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. Rock bottom doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about your pain, your history, your excuses, or your potential. It is cold. It is merciless. It will break you in silence until you either surrender to it or rise from it. I want you to imagine this man, standing alone, everything stripped away. His life wasn't always like this. Once he had fire in his eyes, laughter in his home, and a future he could almost touch. But life, as it always does, tested him. Slowly at first. The little disappointments, the small betrayals, the cracks that seemed insignificant. He ignored them, believing tomorrow would fix everything. But tomorrow didn't fix it. Tomorrow made it worse. Until one day, he woke up surrounded by ruins. He was broken, not just on the outside, but in ways no one could see. Nights turned into mornings, mornings into nights, but inside it was just darkness. The kind of darkness that eats at you, makes you question why you were even born, makes you wonder if there's even a reason to keep going. And let me tell you something about that darkness. It whispers. It tells you lies. It says, you're not enough. You never were. You never will be. It convinces you that everyone was right to leave, that nothing you do will ever matter, that you might as well stay down. But here's the thing. Sometimes you need to hear those lies to realize the truth. Because the man at rock bottom, he started listening, not just to the darkness, but to something beneath it, something deeper. A voice so small, so fragile, he almost missed it. But it was there. It didn't shout, it didn't beg, it simply said, stand up. And at first, he ignored it. How do you stand when your body is heavy with failure? How do you rise when your spirit has been beaten into the ground? But the voice wouldn't go away. Night after night, in the silence of his brokenness, it came back, stand up. He didn't stand the first time, or the second, or the third. But one night, when the pain was unbearable, when the tears burned too much, when the weight of doing nothing felt worse than the weight of trying, he listened. He tried, and it wasn't heroic. It wasn't glorious. He didn't rise like a warrior. He stumbled. He crawled. His legs trembled. His heart screamed. His mind told him it was useless. But still he moved. That is how transformation begins. Not in fireworks, not in cheers, but in that silent, lonely decision when no one is watching. The decision to try. That first night he tried, nothing changed. The world didn't clap. No miracle happened. But something shifted inside him. For the first time in forever, he chose to fight back. For the first time in forever, he decided rock bottom wouldn't bury him alive. And that's the thing about rock bottom. People think it's the end. But sometimes it's the beginning. Because when you're there, stripped of everything, you realize you have nothing left to lose. And when a man has nothing left to lose, he is capable of anything. This man, broken, alone, forgotten, began to rebuild himself. Not with comfort, not with hope, but with discipline. Ruthless, merciless discipline. He knew feelings couldn't save him anymore. Motivation wouldn't save him. Waiting for the right time wouldn't save him. Only discipline could. So he began with small steps, waking up when he didn't want to, training when his body ached, reading when his mind screamed for distraction, working when nobody cared. Day by day, brick by brick, he started building a foundation not out of excuses, but out of action. And though the world couldn't see it yet, inside, a storm was forming. The kind of storm that doesn't just pass quietly, The kind that breaks mountains and rewrites destiny. Because here's the truth, rock bottom is the place where weak men stay, but it is also the place where strong men are born. And this man, he refused to stay weak. He refused to accept that his pain was the end of his story. He decided it would be the fire that forged him. And every night, when the voice whispered, "Stand up," he stood a little taller, a little stronger, a little more relentless. That is how it begins. That is how a man rises from nothing. That is how rock bottom turns into ruthless discipline. When a man decides to rise from rock bottom, the world doesn't notice. The world doesn't applaud. In fact, the world waits for him to fail again. But discipline doesn't care about applause. Discipline doesn't care about validation. Discipline is the weapon of the forgotten, the fuel of the broken, the answer for the man no one believes in. The man who had once been shattered began again. It was never glamorous. His mornings didn't start with confidence, they started with exhaustion. But he pushed. His body screamed for comfort, he denied it, his mind begged him to take it easy. He refused. Every single day became a battle. There were no crowds cheering him on. No mentors guiding his path. No family holding his hand. There was only him. Him and the voice that whispered, "Stand up, keep going." And slowly the pain began to change. At first it felt unbearable. Every push-up felt like punishment. Every early morning felt like torture. But soon, he realized something: the pain wasn't destroying him anymore. It was sharpening him. Because pain, when embraced, transforms. Pain becomes the sculptor of men, and the man who once cursed his suffering now welcomed it. He understood. Pain was no longer his enemy. Pain was his ally. So he leaned into it. Every drop of sweat, every aching muscle, every lonely night spent working when others slept, it all became his sacrifice at the altar of transformation. He stopped asking, "Why me?" and started declaring, "Try me." This shift changed everything. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and while the outside world still didn't notice, something inside him had completely transformed. He was no longer the same man who had been crushed under the weight of betrayal, failure, and loss. He was becoming unrecognizable, even to himself. He looked into the mirror one morning, and for the first time, he didn't see a victim. He didn't see a man defined by mistakes, heartbreak, or weakness. He saw someone forged in fire. Someone dangerous, disciplined, unstoppable. And that's when he understood something most men never realize: a strength is not built in comfort. It is not built when things are easy. It is born in the nights no one sees, in the choices no one claps for, in the discipline no one else understands. The world tells you to chase happiness, to follow your heart, to seek pleasure. But he knew better now. Happiness is temporary, pleasure is fleeting, comfort is poison. The only thing that lasts is discipline. The only thing that carries a man from nothing to greatness is the ability to keep going when everything in him wants to quit. So he chose the hard path every single time. When his friends mocked him for disappearing, he didn't explain. When people told him he had changed, he didn't argue. When life tempted him with shortcuts, he didn't compromise. Because he wasn't trying to prove anyone wrong anymore. He was proving himself right. There's a moment in every transformation when you realize you're not the same man anymore. And when he realized it, fear disappeared. Doubt disappeared. That old broken version of himself, dead, buried, never coming back. And with this death came a new life. He built a routine so ruthless that even when he didn't feel like moving, his body moved anyway. Even when his mind screamed for rest, his actions refused to listen. Discipline rewired him. He no longer waited for motivation. He no longer prayed for inspiration. He became the kind of man who acted without needing a reason. And slowly the world began to notice. At first, it was small. A stranger commenting on his strength. A colleague surprised by his work ethic. Someone asking how he managed to stay consistent. Little cracks of recognition. But recognition wasn't what he wanted. Recognition wasn't why he was doing this. He had already found something greater: respect for himself. That is the moment most people miss. Respect doesn't come from others. It comes from looking into the mirror and knowing. You fought your demons today. You didn't run. You didn't fold. You didn't quit. And he knew, deep in his soul, that this was only the beginning. Because men who rise from rock bottom are never ordinary again. They become living proof that pain can be turned into power, that failure can be turned into fuel, that despair can be turned into discipline. But he also knew something else. This journey never ends. Discipline is not something you master once. It is something you recommit to every single day. And he was ready to bleed, ready to sacrifice, ready to endure whatever life threw at him, because he wasn't scared of falling anymore. He had already been at the bottom. He had already survived hell. What else could life do to him now? And so every night he reminded himself, I was broken, but I refused to stay there. I was weak, but I refused to die that way. I have turned my pain into my weapon, my suffering into my strength, my rock bottom into my foundation. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was transformation. And this man, once forgotten, once destroyed, was now becoming the kind of man no storm could move, no betrayal could break, no loss could silence. He was becoming the man discipline promised he could be. There comes a night in every man's life when he finally realizes he cannot go back. That the old version of him is dead, and the only way forward is through fire, through discipline, through unbreakable resolve. That night changes everything. He had walked through fire. He had buried his past. He had rebuilt himself piece by piece. But now, something greater awaited him. The man who once crawled at rock bottom now stood tall. But discipline demanded more. Because discipline is not just about survival. It is about dominance. It is about creating a life so unshakable, so powerful, that the world cannot ignore you anymore. And he knew this was his time. Every night he whispered to himself, I will not return to the man I once was. He remembered the pain, the weakness, the endless cycle of excuses. And that memory lit a fire so strong, it burned away every trace of hesitation. Because when you've been broken, when you've felt the taste of rock bottom, you learn something no comfortable man ever will. The fear of losing it all is nothing compared to the fear of wasting your second chance. So he stopped living like he had something to prove. He started living like he had nothing to lose. And that mindset made him dangerous. When the world tried to slow him down, he accelerated. When people doubted him, he didn't defend himself. He let his results speak. When life threw obstacles in his way, he didn't complain. He climbed. Every setback became fuel. Every scar became proof. Every tear became evidence that he had chosen the hard road and refused to quit. And here's the truth no one wants to face. Most men stay broken because they wait. They wait for the perfect moment. They wait for someone to save them. They wait for life to be fair. But he had learned the brutal reality. No one is coming. No one is here to rescue you. No one will fight your battles for you. You either rise or you rot. You either fight or you fall. You either decide, I will never quit, or you accept a life of regret. And he had made his choice. The night he decided to never quit was the night he became immortal in spirit. His body might age, his circumstances might change, but his soul had been forged into something eternal. Discipline had turned him into a legend. Because legends are not born in comfort. They are not created in luxury. Legends are born in nights of silence, when no one is watching. They are born in tears, in heartbreak, in relentless repetition when no one applauds. Legends are not handed crowns. They build their own kingdoms, brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. And that's what he became. Not a man chasing happiness, not a man begging for validation, but a man who carried his own throne within him. So here's the message. The one you need to hear: you are fighting a silent war right now. Between who you are and who you could be. Between the comfort that keeps you weak and the discipline that could make you unstoppable. Between the voice that says, quit, and the one that whispers, try again. And that war will decide the rest of your life. The man who rose from rock bottom is not different from you. He was broken just like you. He was doubted just like you. He was afraid just like you. The only difference is that one night, he decided he would never quit. And he kept that promise every single day. So now the choice is yours. You can stay where you are. You can keep repeating the same excuses. You can live and die as the man who never became who he was meant to be. Or you can rise. You can turn your pain into fuel. You can take every scar and wear it as armor. You can decide, tonight, that you will never quit. Because if you do, the world won't be able to ignore you. People will doubt you. mock you, underestimate you, but they won't be able to deny you. They won't be able to deny the man who refused to stay down, the man who refused to surrender, the man who turned his pain into power. And one day, when they ask you how you did it, you won't need to say a word. They'll see it in your eyes. They'll feel it in your presence. They'll know it in your silence. Because the greatest men don't need to shout. Their lives speak louder than their words. So stand up, wipe the dust off, stare at the world with unshakable fire in your soul and say, I was broken, but I refused to stay broken. I was weak, but I refused to die weak. Tonight, I decided to never quit. And that's why I will rise and rise and rise until nothing can stop me. That is the night you change everything. That is the night you become unstoppable. That is the night you turn your pain into your legend. And from that night forward, you will never look back.